Welcome back to Off the Desk. I want to bring in Scott Radke now. He is the Chief Clinical Officer and a licensed mental health clinician with Catalpa Health. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me today, Stacy.
Our topic of conversation today is summer break and kids' mental health. I know your children, mine, they're about week 3 now, just starting into summer break. And it's a time where the routines aren't the way they are during the school year. It can be a challenging time for kids. Talk about what some of those challenges look like for kids right now.
Yeah, I'll start with I don't want to rain on any kid who is so excited about summer finally being here, right? That last day of school when they walk out of the place and just thinking about all the great things that are to come. That's great. But I think it's important to think about what did school offer kids, which can be a challenge for them. School offered routine, social connection, a diversity of activities to do, and, supervision from adults for some kids. That's just really helpful to have. And then they move into a period of time where, unless parents work to create some of that. For some kids, they can kind of fall into a period where they just don't have those things anymore. And it's just a lot of free time, which is good to have free time and some time to relax and unwind. But I think there's some opportunities about what we can do as adults and what parents can do to kind of give some of that structure and routine.
So what can parents do, and also kids? They have to be a part of the equation too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I often start by saying that, whether you're 7 years old or 70 years old, we're wired for routine and also, some production and wanting some value in what we do. So, needing to think about how do we create that? Absolutely, Stacy, that we want kids to have a say in that and how to create that. I think there's a couple things that parents can look for. One, finding an activity that they enjoy, having a social component. I think for my 17-year-old, this morning, he went to a basketball training session at 6:30 in the morning. What's really great about that is he wanted to do it. 1, 2, it's an activity that he gets moving in the day. 3, he starts his day with some social engagement because it's a group format, and he's up and moving right away. So for parents, how many of these boxes can I check for my kid to give them some of that routine? Now, I'll also say, I wish I could tell you that there is one formula for every kid, and there isn't. So I think that's where parents need to think about their child, what their kids' interests are, and then how do I connect them to some activities that can really benefit them?
But there are some common themes, though, right? They should be on a good sleep schedule. They should be eating healthy. What are some of those things that really do apply to every child?
Yeah, sleep is, I often say, is the engine that drives the train. If kids or adults don't get adequate rest and sleep, it makes it really hard to have a good day. So that good sleep hygiene, going to bed at the same time, getting up at the same time, certainly, taking a break from screens that can lead to us being more awake and having trouble falling asleep is important. You touched on nutrition. That plays a factor as well. What we put in our bodies does make a big difference. And I think activity and movement is important also. How can kids build in those activities? And then 4th, I'll add that social component, whether it be with peers, finding friends to do things with, but also as a family and as parents with their children. How can I build in activities with my child in some meaningful activity that can be good for us to do together, but also can lead to great conversations also?
I know with my kids too, they tend to go on their screens a little bit more in the summertime. What's kind of that guideline that parents should follow as far as how much time? And also, one of my children says, Well, this is the way I do connect socially when they're not able to in person. So then you say, oh, well, okay, you are having a conversation with your friend. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is, you know, I'll often do presentations and I'll bring up to the audience that I'm with. I ask them, like, how many of you would like to relive your childhood in today's world? And no one ever says they want to. And then I ask, what's the reason why you say no? And the first thing I always hear is that social media component, right? You know, and if parents feel like that's something that is a challenge, and I would agree, you know, and I would say, like, it's a tool like anything else, like, you know, mindless screen time or unintentional screen time. I think that's where the problem lies. How do I be intentional in my own use? How do I encourage intentional use with my child versus just like it's something that needs to be eliminated? My son, who connects with some of his friends playing Xbox and is on a headset talking to them. And what's really great, my wife and I will sit in the other room and hear like laughter and conversation and like, and me just realizing like the world is different. You know, for me, I would just get on my bike and ride around and see my friends. And he does that too, but he has this other way that he connects also. And how do I find balance between those screen activities and those screen connections, and maybe even some time to unwind and to get off those devices, to connect with people, be face to face with others as well at the same time.
All right. So screen time in moderation.
Absolutely.
Now our conversation continues with some signs to look out for that your child may be struggling this summer and who is most at risk when summer is out. Take a listen.
So kids that may struggle with depression or anxiety may have a tendency to isolate. You know, if someone's really feeling depressed and has low self-esteem, they might have an idea that, well, I don't know if people really want to be around me, or I add a lot of value to relationships. And so we don't want them to this instinctively just like avoid social connections or avoid some of those activities. We want to like make sure they're engaging in activities that they can have success at, that don't stress them out. You know, certainly there's too much of that social engagement that could be challenging also. But, you know, we want to like find that balance. And I think that's where, like, if someone was working with a staff member or therapist on our team, they could work with parents at how do I find that balance?
What are some of the other maybe signs that parents should look for or behavioral changes that could signal, hey, there's a problem here? And then when do you seek help for that?
Yeah. So my first comment is, you know, parents know their kids best. So trust your gut. If you get a sense that something isn't right or, you know, isn't the way you feel it should be, you know, it's important then to like talk to someone. You know, you can certainly talk to friends about that. I often think that your primary care physician or pediatrician is someone you can talk to about that and kind of get an idea is like what I'm seeing is normal or not. And then what do I do about that? You know, calling up an agency like Catalpa Health and talking to one of our staff members is another way to go. There's certainly a lot of issues that come up for kids that can be helped by having that consult with. And I also point out to parents, like, you know, being a parent is the only job where you never applied for it. You just became that. So, you know, I think it's important to recognize like, hey, I don't have to deal with all this or, you know, deal with all these challenges alone. I can find resources that can really help me.
Do you see an uptick in the summertime with children seeking help?
Actually, sometimes it's the other way. During the school year is often our busiest time. And the reason for that is, you know, a kid who's struggling with anxiety and depression, which doesn't take a break in the summer, when the academic pressures are on that child, those problems are more evident. also, like, school staff is really good at attending to, like, hey, this is what's going on in the school day. Um, when school goes away, sometimes there's a tendency to think like that problem is now gone. And all we did was we eliminated that stressor of school. I often think the best time to get help is the summer if you notice things going on in the school year. And for one really important reason, we don't have to contend with the kid being in school at the same time. So I do think coming into the summer, getting some help, getting connected with a therapist sets that kid up for greater success once we do reach the fall and that child is back into school.
This is all great information. As we wrap up the conversation, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure parents hear or children? And I think one thing is there's a lot of pressure on parents. Sometimes they think that they have to be making sure their child is busy every second of the day, but that's not necessarily the case. Boredom can be a good thing.
Boredom can be a great thing. I mean, creativity comes from boredom. Lots of free play and comes from that as well. And I think that's something that's missing right now, especially when we're too structured or too tied to our devices. We don't have an opportunity to be bored. So I think it's okay to do that. Secondly, I'm glad you brought it up. Like, parenting is a really difficult job, and parents shouldn't feel guilty or to blame if their kid is struggling. As I mentioned at the beginning, when I ask adults who wants to relive their childhood today, no one raises their hands. But when I ask parents also, like, how is it to raise your child in today's world, they comment that that's not easy either. So I think parents need to give themselves a break, give themselves credit for what they're doing well, and understand they don't need to deal with it alone. Kids will struggle. The world is a complicated place. It's not getting any easier. And it's important to put the right people, the right supports around kids so they can be successful. And whether that be parents, teachers, coaches, great programs through the YMCA, for parents to look into. Like, there's the activities are there, the structure's there, but there's also like good adults around those kids and those programs that can support the child as well. So the parent doesn't have to feel alone.